despite finding a passionate fanbase who actively champion it, Cat Quest is a series that still feels somewhat slept on, which is a shame because the Gentle Bros never fail to deliver cozy little action RPGs that respect your time. So I was all in for the pirate-themed Cat Quest 3 from the moment it was unveiled at the PlayStation Showcase last year. Cat Quest 3 looked like exactly what it needed to be, another wholesome adventure that further refines the gameplay of the two prior Cat Quest games, and that is precisely what Cat Quest 3 delivers. While Cat Quest 3 isn't the deepest game, and doesn't have a story that will stick with you after you've finished it, Cat Quest 3 is a satisfying, entirely uncynical action RPG that never takes itself too seriously, which makes it a refreshing palate cleanser in a day and age where, if you're like me, you're probably playing dark, cinematic AAA games back to back year round. As you'd probably expect from even a glimpse at this game, Cat Quest 3 is light on story, but the writers understood the assignment at hand and have delivered a simple tale of adventure filled with cat puns aplenty. In Cat Quest 3, you play as an unnamed feline pirate who, alongside their spirit companion Cappy, sets sail across the Caribbean in search of the legendary Northern Star, a mythical piece of treasure that's said to grant the every wish of its finder. Of course, with such a tantalising piece of treasure up for grabs, our heroes aren't the only ones pursuing it. So on your journey, you'll also have to contend with the Pirate King and his endless array of rodent minions, and some unfriendly felines, like the guitar-wielding Captain Meowtalica. And by this point in the video, I'm sure you've figured out whether you're the type of person who finds Cat Quest's endless puns endearing or irritating. I think there's a certain charm to the writing, and there were some moments in Cat Quest 3 that did manage to get a grin out of me, like when I encountered a boss who claimed to be an extremely dangerous level 40 enemy, but in reality was one of the weakest bosses in the game. Cat Quest might not have the most original or striking art direction, but the cutesy art style is a good fit for the series, and I would be remiss to not shout out the excellent character design work the Gentle Bros showcased in Cat Quest 3. Characters like the dog mage Bonnie, who's always gazing into a tennis ball-esque crystal ball, and muscular bartender Mama Milka, who's always there to serve up a nice tall glass of milk for all her feline patrons, were immediate standouts to me. Cat Quest 3's gameplay is relatively simple, but that's by no means a bad thing. It's an approachable and laid-back experience that is great to unwind with after a more intense gaming session. While Cat Quest 3's combat mechanics aren't overly involved, they offer just enough depth for what the game is, and I never got bored with the combat during the roughly 9 hours it took me to platinum Cat Quest 3. There are also some fantastic quality of life improvements here that make Cat Quest 3's combat flow far better than the prior two Cat Quest games, namely being able to have both a melee and ranged weapon equipped simultaneously that you can switch between on the fly. Weaving between enemy attacks with your dodge roll, slashing away at enemies with a sword, and then switching over to a blunderbuss or wand to take out enemies in the distance feels great. But it's once you start unlocking a robust assortment of spells to map to all the bumpers and triggers that Cat Quest 3's combat fully comes into its own. Once you're kitted out with a couple of decent weapons that deal elemental damage, and a full lineup of 4 spells, you can string together some remarkably powerful combos that can clear the screen of all enemies in an instant. You're still never going to be thinking too hard, or being particularly challenged in combat, but the large selection of spells and weapons offered lends an adequate amount of variety for Cat Quest 3's brisk runtime. Your weapons aren't the only customizable elements of your loadout though, as there's also a full gear system that lets you equip various talismans and pieces of clothing and armour, like bandanas, hats, eye patches, vests and shirts, each of which comes with its own stat buffs. All your gear can be strengthened to stay relevant as you level up and grow more powerful, and there are a couple of different ways to upgrade your gear. One way is to find duplicates of equipment. If an enemy drops gear you already have, that item will be leveled up. Alternatively, you can simply pay the smithy in the hub town a visit and have him improve the stats of your gear in exchange for some gold. Of course, it wouldn't be much of a pirate game if you weren't given a ship to sail around in, and your ship is the biggest new addition to the Cat Quest formula in Cat Quest 3. Instead of having one interconnected area to explore like the prior two games, Cat Quest 3's map consists of dozens of small islands that you sail between. There's also ship combat, with you blasting enemies with fireballs and ramming into enemy boats in ship-to-ship battles. At the very start of Cat Quest 3, ship combat is even simpler than the on-foot fights, but as you explore, you'll start finding blueprints that upgrade your ship's reload speed, ammo capacity, fire rate, and sturdiness. You're also able to fit out your ship with new weapons. While most of the ship-to-ship combat is just you tearing through grunts, you will occasionally encounter sea-dwelling bosses that put up much more of a fight. And while most of these bosses are ship-to-ship fights, there are some exceptions, and if you explore the map thoroughly enough, you might even encounter the legendary Blight of the Seas, Cthulhu. Cat Quest 3 has dozens of islands to hop off your ship and explore, and it makes for a rewarding little collectathon as you fight your way through dungeons, explore caves, solve simple environmental puzzles, and follow maps to hidden treasure, something that is essential in any good pirate game. And it's always worth wandering off the beaten path, as you'll regularly find new gear and upgrades, and powerful bosses whose bounties you'll be able to claim back at Mama Milka's bar once they've been defeated. There are also some great Easter eggs scattered across the world, including a nice heartfelt message from the Gentle Bros that's tucked away in an absurdly obscure location. I won't spoil this message or how it's accessed, but I would implore you to look it up if you don't come across it naturally. Cat Quest 3 also presents you with a handful of side quests to tackle, some of which are surprisingly good. In particular, I loved the side quest chain in which you collect storybooks and then play through the events of these books from the perspective of their protagonist, while making choices that affect the story's outcome. In a time where gamers are constantly debating the prices of new video games, I want to give the Gentle Bros credit for pricing Cat Quest 3 appropriately. Cat Quest 3 will set you back $30 Australian or $20 for American players, which feels like a very reasonable ask for the amount of content found in Cat Quest 3. It took me about 6 hours to finish the story, and 9 or 10 hours to see everything and get the platinum, which feels like the perfect length for the level of depth Cat Quest 3 offers. It's not so short that it leaves you longing for more, but it also respects your time and doesn't overstay its welcome. Cat Quest 3 is another fun, wholesome adventure from the Gentle Bros. Cat Quest 3's joyous world is a pleasure to exist in. The scope of the game is perfect, showing restraint in not overstuffing the world with padding, and the clever tweaks to the series' combat and world design make this seafaring adventure not only the best playing Cat Quest game yet, but one of the best indies of 2024 thus far. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to like, subscribe, or leave a comment. You can find countless other videos on my channel, including my recent reviews of Nintendo World Championships NES Edition and Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. And be sure to stay tuned for my upcoming reviews of Black Myth Wukong, Astrobot, and Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2.